All right, I want to ask you about an email that's been sent to the Prime Minister and also to you and all of the other Chief Ministers and Premiers across Australia. Now, it's from the Women's Forum Australia. They have written, they say, with profound concern for the safety and dignity of women incarcerated in our nation's prisons following a series of deeply troubling cases that have come to light across multiple jurisdictions which involve male offenders who identify as women being housed in female facilities. Now, I've read a couple of these stories out throughout my whip around the nation over the last week, and they're woeful. A couple of weeks ago, The Australian was reporting that a trans-identified male offender who sexually abused his own 5-year-old daughter had been placed in a facility in Victoria. Now, disturbingly, the court accepted arguments that the offender's gender dysphoria and struggles with transition diminished his culpability and that he committed the abuse in part to be validated as a woman. Now, when I read that story, I felt sick in the guts. Yeah. It is absolutely woeful that anybody's sentence against their own child, male, female, whatever, would have any kind of justification around it. But then on Friday, The Australian also revealed an even more shocking story from South Australia, where inside a Port Augusta prison, which accommodates both male and female offenders, a female prisoner was failed in every way imaginable, the letter states, by the state's correctional services. She was placed in a cell with a notoriously violent trans-identified male offender and was subjected to a horrific sexual assault by him. Now, they're just a couple the incidents that have been listed here. Presumably you've received this letter?
Yeah, I have received this letter, and we move very quickly to confirm with corrections, and I can absolutely attest to every Territorian that if you are born a gender, that is the prison you go in. So our women's prison have women only. Trans people are not in our women's part of our prison. And in fact, we're strengthening that even further by, of course, moving ahead to build the new women's prison, which will provide even better levels of care to our women in custody.
And so if somebody transitions from male to female,
they will be in the men's prison. Currently, that is the rule, and that rule will continue. We are not mixing.
What about if their birth certificate, etc., says that they are female?
Well, look, I don't know the exact details on how this stuff is worked out. I'm presuming chromosomes get involved, Katie. But at the end of the day, if you're born a bloke, you go in a men's prison, and we'll deal with you there. But we do not mix across our prison system.
I mean, in this letter it says the incarceration of male offenders in women's prisons represents a national human rights crisis. So what do you say to Territorians this morning on this?
Yeah, and the letter is actually scathing. It goes as far to say that these types of laws that other states have, where they are allowing trans into other gender prisons, is actually this ideologically driven law coming from state, Labor. It's basically, call it out, it's Labor, state and federal governments running this social engineering agenda, and that couldn't be further from what our government is about, Katie. This is just practical common sense. It's not dissimilar to the argument around trans men in women's sport, and I think it's good that the Women's Forum have stood up for women and said, hang on a second, I mean, women have been fighting for rights for decades, generations, Katie, and so no, you will not be seeing trans men or women in women's prisons. I mean,
what do you say to anybody who says, that that's the wrong direction, that, people, like, I've got absolutely no issue with trans people in any way, shape or form, no issue whatsoever, but I do start to have issue when we are having women's rights eroded as a result.
Yep.
Now, the other thing that I'm really worried about, or that I certainly worry about in reading some of those different stories in the national media, is that you have to make sure that women are safe.
Absolutely.
Whether they're in the prison, no matter where they are, they have to be safe. And I think it is worth pointing out that no matter what gender you are, that, you find absolute creeps and people that are prepared to do the wrong thing, no matter where they're from, no matter what their background. But I do think it is incredibly important that women are safe.
Yep, I agree with you totally, Katie. This is not about discrimination. This is about safety. This is about understanding the way someone is built. And at the end of the day, people will be, your text line's probably blowing up with all the, I can just imagine what texts you're getting, Katie.
I'm sure
But at the end of the day, we're not into this nonsense in the Territory. My government this is not what what we are about. If you were born a man, you will go to male prison. If you do the wrong thing, our cops will come and get you and will happily find you a bed. Equally, if you're a woman and you do the wrong thing, you'll end up in a woman's prison. But there will be no blurring of those lines. There isn't, and there won't be going forward.